I found out I wasn't who I thought I was because of a blood test. Not a dramatic envelope. Not a whispered confession. A routine blood test. 3 months ago, my doctor called and said, "Ilara, your blood type is AB negative," and I laughed. I actually laughed. I said, "That's impossible. My dad's O positive. My mom's A positive. I did the Punnett squares in 8th grade. That math doesn't math. You know when your stomach drops before your brain catches up? That's what happened. A quiet, sinking O. My name, at least the name I grew up with, is Ilara Morrison. I'm 40 years old. I've been an accountant at Lindgren and Associates for 15 years. I live in Maple Grove with my husband Nathan, our daughter Lily, who's 10 going on 35, and our son James, who is 7 and permanently sticky. My life is steady, predictable, spreadsheet colored. I was adopted from South Korea in 1985. That part was never a secret. Gerald and Diane Morrison, my parents, told everyone. Church potlucks, neighborhood cookouts, parent-teacher conferences. This is Ilara, our gift from Korea. I smiled on cue. I learned early how to make other people comfortable with my existence. It's a weird skill, smiling so other people don't have to ask uncomfortable questions. But here's the thing, I never questioned the paperwork. I never dug. I didn't do DNA kits for fun like half the women in my book club. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I was grateful. Gratitude is easier than curiosity. Gratitude doesn't shake the house you live in. Until that blood test. I drove straight to my parents' house that afternoon. Didn't call. Didn't think. Just drove. The house looked exactly the same, white siding, blue shutters, the maple tree out front that drops helicopters every spring. Gerald answered the door like he was expecting a delivery, not a daughter on the edge of something. "Dad," I said, holding up the lab printout. "What's my real blood type?" He frowned. Not confused, calculating. "Why? Does that matter? Because AB negative isn't possible with you and Mom." He stepped back and let me in, and the way he closed the door slowly, deliberately told me more than his face did. Diane was in the kitchen, drying dishes that were already dry. Her hands shook. I noticed that. I noticed small things. It's what I do for a living. "What aren't you telling me?" I asked. Silence, the heavy kind. Gerald sighed. "You're being dramatic, am I?" My voice cracked. I hated that. Diane set the dish towel down like it weighed 50 pounds. "There were complications," she said softly. "Complications. That word is a magician. It makes ugly things disappear behind syllables." "What kind of complications?" I asked. Gerald spoke before she could. "The agency said your biological mother had signed relinquishment papers. Later, there were rumors she changed her mind. But by then, everything was finalized. Legal. Done. Rumors. Something inside me shifted, like a bookcase tipping just slightly, not. Enough to fall, but enough to know it's not stable. "Did she try to contact you?" I asked. Gerald's jaw tightened. "We were advised not to engage. Not to engage." "Dad," I said slowly, "did she try to contact you?" Diane let out a small, broken sound. That was my answer. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I went home and pulled every document from the fireproof box Nathan and I keep in the closet. Adoption decree, naturalization certificate, birth certificate Minnesota issued, amended. There it was in tiny print. This certificate is not evidence of original record. Oh, I barely slept that night. I kept picturing a woman in Seoul in 1985. 25? 30? Did she hold me? Did she name me? Did she look at the door expecting someone to bring me back? The next morning, I emailed a Korean adoptee advocacy group. I expected a canned response. Instead, I got a call within hours from Dr. Helen Yu. Calm voice, precise, the kind of person who doesn't waste words. "Your agency?" "She?" Asked. "Bright Future Adoption Services." She was quiet for a beat too long. "That agency has been under investigation multiple times for document irregularities," she said carefully. Irregularities, another magic word. I scanned everything I had and sent it to her. 2 days later, she called back. "Your Korean file," she said, "lists a mother. Name, Park Young-hae. Occupation, nurse. No relinquishment signature attached." "No signature?" I repeated. "No." I sat on my kitchen floor while she spoke. The tile was cold. I remember that clearly. Lily's backpack was by the door. James's Lego spaceship was half built on the table. My ordinary life sat all around me while my origin story cracked open. She registered with the National DNA Database in 2019, Dr. Yu added. She is still searching. Still searching. 40 years. I told Nathan that night. He listened without interrupting, which is one of the reasons I married him. When I finished, he said, "What do you need?" "I don't know." I whispered, "I think I need to meet her. Then we'll figure out how." I love that word. When I told Gerald, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "If you go digging," he said, "you're going to hurt your mother." "I'm already hurt," I replied. "This will destroy everything," he said. And I realized everything to him meant reputation, church standing, the narrative. 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Seoul. 14 hours to think, to imagine, to panic. I kept looking at the tiny airplane screen map, watching the little plane crawl across the Pacific like it was stitching two halves of me together. Dr. Yu met me at the airport. Seoul felt alive in a way Minneapolis doesn't. Neon signs, steam rising from street food carts, the smell of sesame oil and exhaust, and something sweet I couldn't name. Park Young-hae lived in a modest apartment above a pharmacy. When the door opened, I forgot how to breathe. She was smaller than me, silver hair pulled back neatly. She looked at me, like she was trying to memorize my face before I vanished again. She spoke first. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Wonder, fear, hope, Dr. Yu translated. She says you have her eyes. I laughed, and then I cried, and then I laughed again because what else do you do in that moment? Inside her apartment, there was a small room with a single crib. Not new, not dusty either, preserved. I kept it, she said through Dr. Yu. I couldn't throw it away. She told me she had gone back to the hospital 3 days after I was born. They told her I needed additional care. When she returned again, I was gone. The agency said she had signed papers. She hadn't. She fought. She wrote letters. She was told she was emotional, unstable. I asked if she ever contacted my adoptive parents. Her hands trembled as she opened a drawer. Inside were copies of letters, one addressed to Gerald and Diane Morrison, dated 1986. I begged, she said. I said I would not take you, only to see you. I stared at my father's name written in careful English. He never told me. He never told Diane the full truth either, apparently. Young-hae said a man from the agency had visited her and later told her the American family preferred no contact. Preferred. Back in Minneapolis, Gerald was preparing for his 45th anniversary celebration at Grace Lutheran. Not retirement this time, it was a lifetime service recognition. 200 guests, a video montage, a speech from me at 5:20 p.m. He emailed bullet points, focus on gratitude, on how adoption was God's plan. I didn't respond. When I landed home, Nathan picked me up from the airport. I got in the car and just said, "She never signed." He squeezed the steering wheel. Okay. The night of the celebration, the fellowship hall smelled like coffee and sheet cake. The banner read, "Celebrating Gerald Morrison, a life of integrity." Integrity. I almost laughed. The video played. Photos of him mentoring young lawyers, praying, with congregants, holding baby me at the airport in 1985. Chosen, the caption read. Then Pastor Lindquist said, "And now, Ilara will share a few words." I walked to the podium. My hands were steady, surprisingly steady. "Good evening," I began. "Most of you know me as Ilara Morrison." Gerald smiled, that public smile. I was adopted in 1985 through Bright Future Adoption Services. Nods in the crowd. What you may not know is that my birth mother, Park Young-hae, never signed relinquishment papers. The air shifted. You could feel it, like when a storm front moves in and pressure changes. I held up the photocopy of the hospital record. She has been searching for me for 40 years. Gerald stood. "This isn't appropriate, Dad," I said gently. "When would it be appropriate?" Silence. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I told facts about the missing signature. The letter from 1986, the DNA registry. "I'm not here to shame anyone," I said. "I'm here to tell the truth. My life was built on love and on silence. Both can exist at the same time." Diane was crying quietly. Rachel, my sister, looked stunned. The mayor slipped out the side door. A few church elders stared at the floor. Gerald's voice, when he spoke, was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "We believe the agency. You received her letter," I said softly. He didn't deny it. The celebration ended early. Plates half full. Conversations hushed. At home later, I sat at the kitchen table with the jade bracelet Young-hae had given me. It was meant for my 100-day celebration. It fit my wrist now. The next week, I filed for a legal name restoration. Not to erase Morrison. Nathan and the kids are my family. But to add back what was taken. Park Soo-yan Morrison. When the judge approved it, Lily asked, "Does that mean you're different now?" I smiled. "Number. It means I'm whole." Gerald resigned from the elder board a month later. Personal reasons, the newsletter said. Diane moved in temporarily with Rachel. The house I grew up in went on the market that fall. I see Diane occasionally, carefully. Boundaries are a new language for us. Gerald and I speak less. When we do, it's honest in a way it never was before, stripped of performance. Young-hae and I video call every Sunday morning. She's teaching me Korean slowly, patiently. Sometimes we just sit in comfortable silence, folding paper cranes together across an ocean. Here's what I've learned. Speaking the truth didn't destroy my family. It exposed the cracks that were already there. It cost me comfort. It cost Gerald his narrative. But it gave me something I didn't even realize I was missing. Myself. If you're listening and you're standing at the edge of a truth that might unravel everything, ask yourself this. Are you protecting peace, or are you protecting a lie? I chose the truth. It was messy. It was terrifying. And I would choose it again. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever felt like you were living inside a version of yourself. Someone else wrote subscribe to her Untold Revenge. This is where we tell the stories we were told to keep quiet. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. You never know who's waiting for permission to speak. My name is Park Soo-yan Morrison. And for the first time in my life, I don't flinch when I say it.